What's up my people, and welcome back to Technological Journey episode 4. In the last episode, we took the first step towards designing our base. We produced polycaprolactam and got our first MV machines, and then using those MV machines we made ethylene and polyethylene. In today's episode, we're going to set up Applied Energistics to digitise our storage. We're going to build our new base, and we're going to move all of our items into our new base, as well as making a few advances in the quest book. So, before we get into moving base and setting up Applied Energistics, I just want to talk about some progress that I made in between the episodes. Now, between this episode and last episode, I have made quite a bit of progress off camera, just because I wanted this episode to be as entertaining as possible, where we're moving into the new base, setting up our terminals, all sorts of things like that, and not have to worry about doing some of the crafting and processing which I was doing off camera. So, as you'll see here, the main thing I've done is I've got pretty much everything we need to set up Applied Energistics, or set up a basic Applied Energistics setup. I've got a drive, I've got 4 1K ME storage cells, I've got an energy acceptor, and I've got a controller. And in order to get those things, I needed to craft up these calculation presses. So everything I did between the episodes was pretty much stuff that we'd already done, just putting a few items through different machines to create different things, apart from these presses. Now, 2 of these presses required stainless steel plates, which means I needed to craft up our first stainless steel ingot, which required stainless steel dust. Now, stainless steel is the HV equivalent of aluminium and wrought iron, so it's our first HV ingot. Although I didn't batch craft it, I just crafted up a few pieces to get the inscriber presses, and that required getting chrome and manganese. Manganese I got from ore processing through pyrolusite, and chrome I got from ore processing through ruby. Neither of which were particularly difficult, they're just some new processing chains that we haven't currently talked about previously. So there's one other thing that we need to set up Applied Energistics, and that is a crafting terminal. Well, we don't need a crafting terminal, but we just need some sort of terminal, and a crafting terminal I think is always the best way to go straight out the gate. So I made the bits and pieces here to make this terminal, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this now. So that's our ME terminal, and then to upgrade it to a crafting terminal we just need to put it in a crafting bench with a crafting table and a calculation processor, which gets us our crafting terminal. The difference between the crafting terminal and the normal terminal, as you might guess, is just that it has a crafting bench inside the terminal, which allows us to just shift click recipes in directly from our digitized storage, rather than having to drag them all across into a separate crafting bench, which saves an awful lot of time. Now, another thing I've done in between the episodes is I've set up this basic electric rock breaker, which essentially just needs to be adjacent to lava and water, and then it just acts as a cobblestone generator. It also generates diorite, granite and andesite, although we're not using these blocks for anything yet. And the reason I did this is because we essentially need this as our base block for building the base, because we can process it into gravel, sand, therefore concrete, and we can also smelt it down into smooth stone, which is what we need to craft both of these X-tones blocks. The 3 blocks that we're using for the base at the moment are corp, mist and light grey concrete. For light grey concrete we're going to need to set up a basic greenhouse to just multiply white tulips, because we need to craft grey dye in relatively large batches. And then we're also going to need to set up a fluid solidifier, or we already have one. We're going to need to use our fluid solidifier to make snow for our mist blocks. But that's all 3 of our building blocks sorted, and then later on in the episode, while we're carving out the hill for the base, we can chuck more cobblestone through there and let these things process in the background so we have enough to build the base when we get there. Right, so back in the mining dimension, I set up that greenhouse that I talked about to produce us grey dye, and I've taken a trip into the overworld and run over to this spot here. I've also made a waypoint just so we know where we're running to again in the future. Now, you might recognise this mountain here from the creative test world that I showed you last episode, that this is the same location in the actual survival world in which we built the base in the creative test world. So what I did was I created a schematic from the creative test world called base section 1. Now if I load this in, it's going to be a bit difficult to see straight away, but this essentially is just a see-through preview of what I'd created in the creative world. So now I've just got to align this up, which could be a bit difficult, but I'll grab you when I've done that. Okay, so this does look a little bit strange at the moment with all of these different colours, but it is definitely aligned up. or at least I'm pretty sure it's aligned up. And essentially what these different colours mean is what we need to do to the blocks. Now some of these blocks like leaves get a weird orange colour because they're translucent blocks, so I'm not sure how that works, but ones that are pink essentially mean we need to get rid of them. Ones that are blue means we need to place them in. And I'm not sure what the other colours mean. I think red means we need to get rid of them as well. So the next step now is to just mine out this mountain here where it's all pink. And then we essentially will have some space to start building the base after. But this could be quite a long job, so I guess we'll see how long this takes me. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes, and I'd say I've probably excavated about less than a quarter of what I need to do in total. But you can see that we're starting to reveal the shapes behind the base hidden in the schematic here. And if I take a trip outside the cliff, you can see how it's going to start to resemble the thing that we have in the creative world. And I guess the positive to doing all this mining, even though it does take an awful long time, is that we are going to get a lot of ores through doing this because it's quite a large area we're clearing out. I've already got like 5 or 6 stacks of different types of quartz ores, and in the creative world I remember when I was excavating it there that I'm pretty sure there was a couple of useful veins just the other side of this building, just the other side of this section here. So I guess I'm going to go back to mining. I managed to finish clearing most of this stone out. Now it is a bit messy. Look, if I just hide the schematic here, it does look like a bit of a complete mess, I'm not gonna lie, but that should be okay because we're not really going to see anything behind the walls once we place them in, are we? And this is what it'll look like here. Now we might need to do a bit of terraforming around the edge of the mountain where I've just accidentally mined a couple holes in it, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. And I think the next step now will be to go and craft up a huge batch of some of these building blocks and start to build in these walls and these floors. I want to start with the floors just so that we have somewhere to walk around, because since we don't have creative flight, building the roofs is going to be extremely hard. Right, so I've gone round and I have placed most of the non-architecture craft blocks that are within reach without having to fly or build pillars anywhere. I built one pillar across there to build some of those blocks up there, but I think it would be really beneficial to see if we can get flight. Okay, so it looks like this grey Locality jetpack is doable at this point, which I think it just needs power to charge. Yeah, it says there, it takes EU. Right, so I should have the things here needed to craft up the jetpack. If I just chuck these in here, it looks like, I'm assuming we're going to need a higher, yeah, we need an MV assembler. Okay, that's a bit of an issue then. So because the MV assembler is locked behind these tier 3 circuits, and we haven't done any of this progression here, I think I'm just going to have to bridge around to build the base up, but that's not too much of an issue, it'll just take a bit longer. So I'll catch you when I've placed all of the non-architecture craft blocks in the base. With pretty much all of the architecture craft blocks placed, it's starting to take shape as a base and what it looked like in the creative world. Although now doing all the architecture blocks is going to be the long bit, because these bits, like these normal blocks here, I can place with the printer mode. Although architecture craft blocks don't seem to really be compatible with the printer mode, so these things I have to all place individually. But we already have an architecture craft table crafted back in the mining dimension, so if I just travel over there, so let's start with these concrete ones, just because I already have a bunch of these created. But all you need to do is put them through the table and you get your different pieces. And then if I go back to the new base and I turn on the schematic by pressing show, I don't know if I want to test if it works, but I think, oh, I've got it turned on now. That's not what I wanted. So look, yeah, you can see here, it just sort of mixes them up and places them in the wrong direction. So I'm actually going to have to go through and filter the ones that just placed out. But I guess I've just got a job to do in placing all of these bits. And then, oh yeah, I lit up the floor underneath with feral flare lanterns. You can see them here, but I've just hid them behind the walls and floors of the base. And that essentially just lights up the entire area without the need for torches. But yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and place all of these architecture craft blocks and catch you then. After another long stint of building, I finally completed the lobby. The next step now is to move in everything to the base. So we have spots here for our terminals, and we're going to expand out into this section. But before we move everything in, I need to design more. essentially, even though I've just built this entire thing and spent ages doing it. And that's because although this place looks cool, there's not actually any room for machines, because I don't really want to just place stuff up here. And in order to even move our terminals in, we're going to need power to supply them. So the first thing I'm going to build is a space to put our power generation. So that'll be, at least early game, that'll be coke ovens, steam boilers, things like that. I hope you like building, because 90% of this episode, I'm afraid, is going to be building the base. If building isn't your thing, then I guess there'll be lots of Greg machining to come, I guess. Now, it's been about 6 hours since I last caught you in that last clip, and I've just been doing a bunch of building, and I got a little bit carried away. So rather than just building a space for our power generation, I sort of made a space for all of our single block machines as well, and I also chunk lined the entire thing so that if we wanted to repurpose the space for multi-block use later, then we can. But this is what I came up with. So here we've got our little like lobby section over on that side, and then we have this little walkway here which we can expand over in that direction. And if we go down these stairs here, we have a little section under here, and if we just turn on chunk boilers, I'm planning on putting 2 bronze boilers in these 2 sections here, so they're not crossing chunk boilers, and 2 more in here, and then these 3 slots and these 3 slots in the back here are spaces for the coke ovens, and 3 coke ovens is a perfect ratio to supply 2 boilers. So this setup here will allow us to run 4 boilers and give us significant space to do so. And then if we take these stairs up here, we just have a large open platform here. So all of these court variant sections here are all chunk aligned so that none of them are crossing any chunk borders, which essentially means that in the future if we wanted to place multi-blocks on them, then we can. Although for now I'm just going to repurpose this space, or not repurpose, sorry, I'm going to use this space for now to just place all of our single block machines, and I might even bring over the steam macerator and things like that. But I just need to set up the basic infrastructure that we had over in the mining dimension, move it through to this base, and then we can start to set up our AE2 storage and put the terminals in the slot there. And at that point we're ready to actually start doing some more work towards progression, and everything should be a lot quicker as well because we have digitized storage, which will speed up crafting rapidly. And I've moved our 2 coke ovens over. Now, even though we do have space for a third one here and another 3 over there, I'm not going to upgrade the steam production setup just yet, just because we're not in need of it. But essentially this one's doing the wood, and then it's exporting it over to here, and we'll have another one processing charcoal as well later. And then both the creosote and the coal coke from this one are both going into the boiler. And this is the tank output here. Now the wiring here is a bit messy, I'm not gonna lie. When I say a bit, I mean very. But I will clean up. Okay, well I'm going to fix that now. I will clean up the tunnels and wiring tunnels and make them look nice and pretty as well. It's just I've just spent so long building that I think I want to take a break from building first. But wiring tunnels will be a big focus, so let me just rebuild this. Okay, so that should be built and running again. Now if we just take a trip over here and go up to where the terminals are, I have set up our basic network, and I just need to give it some power. Now I'm not sure if this will be sufficient, even just to start, but I'm just going to plop a turbine there and then chuck a tank on top and set that tank to output, so it should fill up with air. And now this should take energy from the steam turbine, I believe. If I wrench it round, I might need to go grab a wrench. Let me just go back to the base. So I've got my wrench, and if I just click this like that, it's just getting, yep, there we go. So we are now online. Now I will make a network tool, which at some point, I think they're relatively cheap. Yeah, they're pretty cheap, just takes a processor. But that will essentially allow us to see how much energy we're using for this. So, because I'm not sure how long this steam turbine is going to be able to keep up. Although it looks like it's running at the moment, but obviously we have no items in. So let's just put a couple of items. That is very satisfying, and I don't think it's synced with JI. Nice. You can change that in the settings mode on the side here, but just having an AE system is a huge step forwards in this pack. This is where it really starts to take off. Especially like any GregTech pack really, as soon as you get Applied Energistics, you're good to go sort of. So I'm just going to move all of our items now over from the chests over in the mining dimension over into this Applied Energistics 2 setup here, and I'll catch you once I've done that. So I had to make a couple more 1K storage cells, and we already had some 1K storage parts left over, so that wasn't particularly hard. Although there are a lot of items in here like redstone, wood planks, wood, stone, all of these things, which I'll move into storage drawers at some point with storage buses on it, once we've unlocked the technology for storage buses and designed a room for storage, because I want an entire room like this one just dedicated to storage, probably at some point, which will hold all our drives and storage crates and all sorts of things like that. So that will save us a bunch of storage when we move a bunch of things over into drives. But now we digitized, the next step is to probably move over our steam macerator and all our individual block machines. And then after that, we can probably take a look at the quest book and see where we can go. Because I don't think I want to set up interface automation just yet. I think I'm going to stick to manual moving of items just for the moment. Although crafting will become a lot easier with this setup here. Now we can just shift click recipes into here directly from our storage. Okay, so I moved over 90% of our single block machines here. I left out some of the Ender IO machines just because I don't want to set them up on these lines yet, just because they can have a much higher power drain than some of these machines here, so these turbines wouldn't be able to keep up. But what I've done is I've just routed a couple of chests through them using Ender conduits, just to give it some storage. And then they're all powered on site through this cable at the back, which is now 16x, and some steam turbines here, which are fueled by an Ender tank with steam. And I've also got I've just got the rest of the machines here, which is currently a work in progress. And here I've got our steam oven, our steam grinder, and our primitive blast furnace. This obviously doesn't require any power. However, the other two are just powered by a Ender tank and Ender fluid conduit setup, just inputting steam into the bottom underneath here. I also moved over our EBF, although it needs maintenance because I had to destroy the hatch to pick it up. So I'll get around to that at some point, and it's also not hooked up to any power, but I think we'll power that on site probably with some steam turbines just over here at some point. Now once I've got these machines set up here, I think the next step would be to move over our processing lines and probably build the gold line, which we put off back in episode 2, I think it was, for when we had some more space and we could set it up in a more permanent way. And these three sort of sections here I think will be good for polyethylene, our gold line, and then maybe another small processing line that we can put here. But I think I'm going to save that for next episode, because even though today's episode has been a bit shorter than usual, we have made an awful lot of progress in terms of building the base, and we now have a much more permanent place in which we can set up all of our machines. So from here on out, everything we do will have much more purpose and can be much more permanent. But on that note, thank you for watching Technological Journey episode 4. If you liked the video, please do drop a like and leave a silly comment to let me know what you enjoyed about it. And don't forget to subscribe. That's about it. Bye.